Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee. And joining me is my co-host, Managing Director of International Content, Emily Parker. Good morning, Emily. Lawrence Lewitton is off.
Good morning.
Good morning there you are. Back in the spaceship. All right, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently trading at $43,604. Bitcoin slightly up about 66 basis points over the past 24 hours. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index, it's above that $3,000 threshold this week, trading at 30.78, also up about 2.4% over the past 24 hours. And the new DFX CoinDesk's DeFi index right now trading at 575. DeFi also shooting up ahead, almost 5% for the day. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. So, Emily, looking at our top story, it's China. Insiders are telling CoinDesk that China's latest crypto ban is its most severe. And insiders are saying individuals who live inside China but work for offshore exchanges can be subject to legal prosecution for the first time. So many folks in the crypto industry have been dismissive about this latest ban because there have been so many. But is this China crackdown more serious than the ones previous?
Yes, well, it looks like China has just been kind of increasing the pressure. So China never fully banned Bitcoin, and it still has not fully banned Bitcoin, but the pressure has gotten incrementally stronger over the years. Bobby Lee, our next guest, will talk about that more in detail. But I think one of the reasons why a lot of people in the crypto community are shrugging this off is because it hasn't really had that much of an impact on the price. You know, the China news came out and Bitcoin fell briefly, but then, we woke up and it was up this morning. So that's a really big change because China news just have a much greater impact on the price of Bitcoin worldwide.
Right. Other stories I'm just watching off the wire right now. Anthony Scaramucci telling Bloomberg that institutions are not into crypto, but those that are making it sound like there is greater institutional adoption than there actually is. But on the bright side of things, Twitter came out with Bitcoin tipping. Now you can go onto Twitter and attach your Bitcoin address, a Bitcoin Lightning address, and send Bitcoin tips to any user around the world. And I mean, that has huge implications toward network effects and mass adoption. So something to be on the watch for. All right, but as you mentioned, let's dive deeper into the China crackdown on crypto. And joining us now to discuss is Bobby Lee, author of The Promise of Bitcoin, founder and CEO of Ballet, and co-founder of BTCC, formerly BTC China, the first Bitcoin exchange in China. So, Bobby, what is different this time about this crypto ban in China, if there's anything at all? Does this one have teeth?
So it's more of the same. So technically, it is a more severe crackdown. It closed the loopholes for the exchanges who are operating from abroad, offering services, trading services to the Chinese people on mainland China. As you know, the last ban in 2017 essentially forced all the exchanges to close down within China. And I myself would close down BTC China operations, whereas our competitors nominally moved abroad. So there was a loophole where they could sort of relocate abroad from a jurisdiction perspective, yet offer the same trading services to the same domestic Chinese users. So this time the ban is explicit. It criminalizes the service offerings from abroad to Chinese mainland users. So this closes all off the buying and selling of the transactions that involve buying and selling of Bitcoin. So I know in the media they've talked about this bans all Bitcoin transactions. I think that's a mistranslation. It's more about banning the buy-sell transactions. Whereas, for example, traditional transfers, if I were to withdraw some coins from an exchange, that is still legal. And holding and owning cryptocurrency in Bitcoin, that is still legal. So it's not the final nail in the coffin.
So, Bobby, one of the main ways that cryptocurrency traders are operating in China is through over-the-counter OTC platforms, and as far as I know, those still exist, right? So these are not actually exchanges; these are more platforms that kind of connect buyers and sellers. That to me seems like that would be a big nail in the coffin. What do you see as the future of OTC trading in China?
So I think OTC platforms that are operated from the big exchanges, the Huobi and so on, and Binance, they will close down. They will stop offering their services to the Chinese mainland users. So I think the last few days, I think there's still OTC users, making transactions. I think that will just taper off. I think what's happening is with capital controls and the strong sort of regulatory pressure on Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin and crypto assets are going to become what we call foreign assets. Think of mainland Chinese citizens who may own real estate property in another country, in Australia, in Canada, in the United States. So Bitcoin becomes that kind of foreign asset where you can't sell that foreign property from within mainland China. But if one day you were to travel to that country on vacation or for whatever work reason, then when you're abroad, you can then take care of buying and selling these foreign assets. But while inside mainland China, you won't be able to do that.
So, Bobby, that's actually a pretty bold statement that China is going to shut down OTC trading, because that, in my view, would definitely be a final nail in the coffin. So, I guess the question is what would be the impact on the Chinese market? I mean, you just suggested some ways that they might get around it, but as we've talked about before, people in China are used to these kinds of restrictions and often find ways around them. So, what would happen? I mean, would you just really see cryptocurrency trading stopping in China, or people just kind of find other ways around it?
Oh, all right. We lost Bobby Lee for a second there. Now he's back.
Okay. I don't know if I got cut off, but I can hear you now.
Back.
Okay.
So,
sorry, did I get cut off, or should I?
You got cut off.
Answer? You heard my last question. I was just saying that, did you hear my question, or I can repeat it?
No, I did not. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I was just saying, you just made a very bold statement that China is going to close down OTC trading. That's been a major force for crypto trading in China. So what will happen to the traders, the mainland traders? Because as we've discussed before, people in China generally are good at getting around these kinds of restrictions. They've sort of navigated their way around restrictions for many years. Would this really shut down the cryptocurrency market in China, or would people just find another way? And what would that way be?
I think it will shut down the trading market for cryptocurrency. I think cryptocurrency, the mining aspect has already been shut down since earlier this summer. The trading aspect was partially shut down in September of 2017, but due to the workarounds and all the OTC and all the underground money changers and moving to USDT and all that, sort of it still thrived in an underground fashion in the past 4 years. I think this. With this regulatory crackdown this past Friday, I think that will sort of close off that loophole and officially make it a criminal behavior activity to both for the companies abroad that offer the trading services and for the domestic users in China who do try to buy, sell through these platforms. So again, this is to further the objective for the regime, which is to control the finances, the economics, and to not allow this sort of rogue trading of crypto asset that's outside of the framework of the PRC.
So in the end, what is China's, well, you mentioned China's endgame is to control the financial system. Do you think they will actually succeed in that, or will crypto find a way? Because there are a lot of personalities in the crypto space who are saying, well, you can try to ban Bitcoin, you can try to ban decentralized cryptocurrencies, but it will always find a way of popping back up because you can't stamp out the internet. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think crypto will find a way?
My thought is, on Earth, as a planet, cryptocurrency will never get squashed. Bitcoin will always stay around and thrive, because all it takes is for a group of people to consider it as valuable asset, and people will start holding it, hoarding it, and trading it and making payments in it. Now, countries obviously have governments who can have the right to set the rules as they see fit. So if China wants to ban the trading or the transaction nature of cryptocurrency of Bitcoin in China, China has every right to do so. However, Bitcoin will continue to thrive. And I think Bitcoin is still the investment of our lifetime. So Bitcoin, in terms of its price, in terms of its value, I don't think that's going to be affected whether or not a single country will stop using it. So I'm sort of I see both sides. I understand that China can put an effective ban to the transactions, to the trading, buying, selling of Bitcoin. China has long since banned the leverage trading, the futures trading contracts and stuff like that of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So now the OTC stuff will get stopped as well. So there's two sides to it.
Bobby, thus far, at least what we're seeing over the past few days, your thesis is completely right in the sense that China has sort of amped up this crackdown and it hasn't affected Bitcoin's price very much at all, at least not in a significant way. In fact, it's been going up. But there's a lot more to come. Like, for example, Huobi has basically said that, existing users need to sort of get off by the end of the year. As you said, there's the chance that they could shut down OTC trading. If these two things happen, a lot of people are going to be selling cryptocurrency and probably putting it back into Chinese currency, right? So is there like a major price movement that could come in the next few months? Because it seems like China is still, there's a lot of people holding crypto there, it seems, right? So when these two events happening, Huobi basically closing the doors and also OTC potentially shutting down, is there a potential Bitcoin crash that would follow?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I take the optimistic side of that. And here's why. So when it comes to bad news, like rumors of bad news, it's always sell on the rumor, buy on the news. What that means is when the rumors of it, there's pricing pressure on the underlying asset, in this case, Bitcoin. There's been rumors all summer that China would take a harder stance, harder crackdown on Bitcoin. And the reason this time when the news did come out this Friday, as you know, the document was dated September 15th. So it took another, 8-10 days for the news to get out, to be officially published by the PBOC. So in the interim, it was sort of priced into the news was sort of priced into the price of Bitcoin. And when the news came out, it was a relief that it wasn't worse than people thought it was. And that's why it was very small correction. And now it's already practically recovered to where it was on Thursday, Friday morning before the news came out.
Though, it's just sort of, there's a little bit of a distinction here, though, because we're not talking about news. I'm talking about like a lot of people in China actually having to sell because these platforms will close, right?
Yeah, let me talk about that.
Seems like that could have
Yeah, but the reality is because the trading has already been stopped, so it's kind of like the Chinese people have no way to sell it anymore for all practical purposes. There's no longer a mad rush at the gate because you're not allowed to rush out. You're not allowed to sell or buy, for that matter. So I think it's gonna freeze. Like the people who have crypto will have to withdraw it onto a cold wallet. We as maker of Ballet, we see a huge rise. We saw a huge rise in orders over the weekend. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think the remaining people, some people are panicking. They don't know what to do. But the people who are panicking, they don't really have a way to sell their coins anymore. So it's just going to sort of stay put for the next few months and years. And in reality, what I see is actually a very bullish Q4 for this year. I still stand by my prediction that Bitcoin prices will go way above 100,000, maybe even over $200,000 this year by end of this year in November, December timeframe. And I think with this sort of bad news out of the way, that the reason why the market price recovers is because once the bad news, so to speak, is in the past, it's already come out, it's now part of our history and no longer something that we have to worry about as a market, that's when the prices can recover and start climbing back up again. And that's what we're seeing in the last 48 hours.
Is there another catalyst you're seeing that will drive up the price of cryptocurrency? You said over 100,000 for Bitcoin, but also secondly, are Chinese people dealing with crypto putting themselves at risk then?
I don't think Chinese people, I'll answer the second question. I don't think Chinese people are putting themselves at risk. I'm a very bullish, Bitcoin bullish on Bitcoin and crypto. So when people own it, think of it treat it as a foreign asset. Treat it as if you owned a piece of real estate in Hawaii or in some foreign country. So the fact that you can't buy, sell doesn't mean that it's worthless. In fact, if anything, the price can still continue to go up over the next few years, and you just don't have a way to sell it in the interim. So for all, the positive way to see it is for all the amount of Bitcoin and crypto that's held in China that cannot be bought or sold, as the prices go up, maybe there's less selling pressure, if anything, right? Now, certainly there's less buying volume because Chinese people cannot easily buy it. But that's not going to stop the success of cryptocurrency, right? So Bitcoin wasn't born to succeed because China is around, right? If China is not here, Bitcoin can still succeed and will continue to succeed. So in that sense, I think it's healthy for the world to realize that Bitcoin is truly decentralized and not dependent on one specific market or segment.
All right, really fascinating conversation. Appreciate you and sharing your insights, Bobby. We got to wrap it there. But that was The Promise of Bitcoin author and Ballet founder and CEO Bobby Lee. Coming up, checking in on Asia and the crypto markets update with trading firm GSR. Time now for the daily forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, September 27th, 2021. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News, covering all things blockchain. Well, China's crypto crackdown shook the industry. The Chinese government banning all cryptocurrency-related transactions and activities, including those made via exchanges based outside of the country. What it all means in this special edition of the Daily Forecast. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. This policy shift taken very seriously here. Huobi has stopped registering new customers in mainland China and says it plans to retire all mainland China user accounts by the end of this year. Industry leaders in China say China is very serious this time, especially when this notice is issued by not just the central bank, but a united front from all legal, public security, and banking authorities. Forecast News' Timmy Shen has more.
Crypto exchange Gate.io says it will pause onboarding new Chinese users, but existing users won't be affected at this point. They account for 25 to 30% of its users. Both Binance and OKX told Forecast News that they have been blocked in mainland China since 2017. Zhou Yu of UnionPay says the move suggests a stricter than ever regulatory stance on cryptocurrency.
消费者的角度，它本身也一方面是维护你消费者的一个权益，省得你自己去，不管是被诈骗了，还是被这种投资损失了，这个都是一方面，这是维护这个消费者的一部分权益。
Several experts told Forecast News the notice implies that trading between individuals is not banned, so the impact for them might be minimal. For Forecast News, I'm Timmy Shan, Taipei, Taiwan.
Over onto the markets now. Although we did see a dip, it proved relatively small compared to other recent headline-grabbing events. While $130 billion was wiped off the total global cryptocurrency market cap between September 24th and the 26th, that pales in significance compared to the $932 billion wiped out in May's crash.
So what you're seeing here, I think, is the market reacting to, first of all, an expectation that Huobi and to a lesser extent OKX, I think they haven't yet announced what their response is going to be, if any, to this, are going to be hit pretty hard from this, that they may lose a lot of their Chinese user base, combined with an expectation that that might flow to other exchanges or to decentralized exchanges.
For the bigger picture and the bigger context here, China's clampdown on crypto started much earlier than Friday. You'll remember after the crackdown on mining, it triggered mass relocation of mining operations out of China earlier this year. Well, now exchanges are looking for more transparent regulatory havens. Singapore, which has a licensing framework for crypto under its Payment Services Act, has seen several Chinese cryptocurrency exchanges, including Binance, Bybit, Huobi, OKCoin, all set up shop in the city-state. Now, over in India, the industry is seeing rapid growth despite concerns over the slow progress of crypto regulation. Huge numbers are actually getting involved in crypto investment. The number of people employed by the crypto industry in the country is expected to balloon from 50,000 at present to around 800,000 by 2030. So one big name that's already made a move is crypto exchange FTX. I spoke to SBF Sam Bankman-Fried, who told us that this has been a few months in the making, the move to relocate its official headquarters from Hong Kong to the Bahamas. He says, you can't single out Hong Kong here because it's much broader than that.
I think if you look at just many countries in the world right now, you will not see clear signaling from regulatory bodies there about what direction crypto policy is going to go in. And I think that's been true in Hong Kong. I think that's been true, frankly, in more than half of the jurisdictions in the world.
Whether it's down to changing regulation or increased demand, there could be more such moves to come. Reading between the tea leaves is an important skill here in Asia, especially when it comes to policy and impact on the industry. It's kind of something we do a lot here. And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit forecast.news. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
Quick update on Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index currently trading at $43,550. Bitcoin is up about 0.5%. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is trading above $33,000 at $3,078. ETH also up about 2.4% over the past 24 hours. And the new DFX CoinDesk's DeFi index right now at 575. DeFi charging ahead 4.7% over the past 24 hours. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets and more is Rich Rosenblum, co-founder and president of trading firm GSR. Hey there, Rich. So just quickly, getting your outlook on Bitcoin. We see a bit of a rise. What's behind that? And where are you seeing opportunity?
Good morning. Yeah, I'd say all the China news, I'm not going to lie, it's certainly bearish. When you hear that the country that has the biggest amount of viewership and entrepreneurs in the whole space is banning Bitcoin, regardless of how much teeth or the exact details, that's bearish. But you look at the market, and the market is reacting surprisingly well. And like you said, it's not really the base coins, the L1s, that are thriving. I'd say they're surviving. But DeFi has really been soaring. You look at certain coins like DYDX in the past week has almost doubled. It makes sense. If you can offer leverage, you can offer perps. You have Huobi and Binance make up over 3 times the volume of all the other exchanges combined. So if they're going to be depressed in their usership and new onboards, the beneficiaries are going to be these groups like Uniswap, Sushi, DYDX that offer a more decentralized platform.
Good morning, Rich. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit further on the connection between the Chinese crackdown and the sort of surge in DeFi, if there really is a strong one?
Yeah, so what happens is that if you spend your day, whether day trading or multitudes of people investing in the space, and you're told that you're not allowed to use your favorite platform, which to many has been Binance, and then what are you going to do? It only takes a matter of a couple of minutes to download a MetaMask and be able to log in to one of dozens of platforms that some have over 10 billion of total value locked in these platforms. And the liquidity is similar and potentially within a few months could be better. So I think that the user experience of DeFi is getting better, the liquidity is getting better. And once you know more people doing it, there's a saturation element. Once you feel like everyone's doing it, it's going to become